All right, I think we're live. I got bags under my eyes. Have to wake up early in the morning. To take my kid out to cross country. But at least I don't have to run. He's got to do his cross country stuff and run. I was like, Captain, you're waking up about as early as I did when I was in basic training, man. You know what I'm saying? I was like, geez, crazy. So while we're getting started, I cannot recommend this book enough. Exposing the Expositions by Howdy Bukowski. Oh my goodness. He's right now. I'm reading about. He's talking about the University of Chicago, how the University of Chicago was built. The old university supposedly burned down. They took a stone from the old university, which is built. Let me just read this to you while I'm a little bit early. The University of Chicago is an oddity of history. Oh, by the way, did you know what? Yeah, right here. What Midway? Remember, Monsters of the Midway, the Chicago Bears. All right. Anyway, the Chicago Bears. The University of Chicago began in 1856 in a castle building. The building was isolated from the rest of the city. A fort called Camp Douglas, a Civil War prisoner of war camp, was used for a while. Nothing else is around but empty space. Why would you build this castle in the middle of nowhere to be a university? In 1850s, they did. It was here before us. Then put a POW camp beside it. I've looked for information about the construction of this building, and of course, I found nothing. The university existed until 1886, when it supposedly ran into financial problems, and then a fire that seems to burn down everything but the main tower. Wikipedia says in 1874, a fire damaged the university's main physical plant. So remember, we have the University of Chicago in this castle in the middle of nowhere. A fire damages it, except the main physical plant. The fire damaged the main physical plant. Physical plant sounds like a dynamo or electricity generation, does it not? What exactly is a physical plant, and why does a simple university building shaped like a castle need one? I have found photos of the demolition of the tower in 1890. All right. They went out to John, remember, in 1890. All right. They went to John Rockefeller. Now, John Rockefeller isn't the same John Rockefeller we know now, but still, they went for financial support, and he refused. So the old University of Chicago was forced to shut down. But then that same John Rockefeller came in later and changed his name, changed the name to the old University of Chicago, so that he could create a new University of Chicago, financed by Rockefeller. All right. Then he could open it where it is now, right next to the Columbian Exhibition Midway. Since that time, all fairs have had a midway of carnival rides and activities. It's also known why the Chicago Football Club became known as Monsters of the Midway. I had no clue. But carnivals have a midway where the rides are and stuff. Construction of the new university buildings began in 1890, right as the World Fair is being set up next door. Of course, this new university has a number of Gothic buildings and cathedral that might not look out of place in Tudor England. Does this seem odd to you, to build this exact same time as they're constructing the 690-acre World's Fair at Jackson Park? Yet Rockefeller can gather a workforce to build the university right next door and then not use any of the university buildings for the expo. The university's mascot is a phoenix rising from the ashes. Oh my goodness! So all told, these connections have led the dean of the college, University of Chicago history professor John Boyer, to conclude that the University of Chicago has a plausible genealogy dating back to pre-Civil War institutions. Anyway, it's just, man, this book is look. This is one of those things that you're going to read forever, because every page you're like, that can't be true, and it's true. It's crazy, man. You're like, no way, and yes way. They're building the same university, the University of Chicago, at the same time they're building right next door. This massive exposition. The whole thing's crazy. All right, so let's. I just thought that was funny. Anyway, if you guys, all right. Birmingham, Alabama. Yeah, Annette, if I were you, I'd be looking at North Alabama. Dothan, southeastern Alabama. Auburn. Oh, Auburn kicks ass in southeastern Alabama, but man, North Alabama kicks ass. I would look at Mississippi too. I'm telling you, Mississippi. Rolling hills of northern Mississippi, where Elvis was born and whatnot. Freaking gorgeous, dude. A little bit too hot for this guy, but gorgeous for sure. All right, so let's go. The issue is, Jeremy. So we know that Christopher Columbus said he saw white people in the United States, in the Americas when he came here. He saw white people, blue-eyed, blonde hair. The history, I'm concluding now, the history we've been told is completely incorrect, 100%. I don't know exactly what that means. I just know that with Christopher Columbus's writings and whatnot, and we also know that Christopher Columbus did not think the Earth was flat. All this stuff, the whole thing is nuts. There's been a design of redoing history right about the first, well, maybe not the first, but a great reset happened in the mid 1800s. All right, so there is history here. There is just amazing structures that were built with technology that we could not even do today, just all over the North America. And this is just talking about North America. No way that this was just built mud huts and people who had no access to tools and modern technology. No way, man. And so there is a different people here, and I don't know what it is. I have no clue, but it's interesting as can be. And when you read books like this and you go into it, you say, wait a second. And you see these buildings of just, and never mind just going back to the Giza and all that in Egypt. That stuff wasn't done by slaves and horse and buggies being whipped by Jews or whatever. No. The level of sophistication building these structures is mind-boggling. And as such, there was something here before. And then we had, so one of the things would be that there's an energy, like a lot of people say Tesla had free energy and stuff. He designed this thing that we could all have, power. And I haven't done that much of a deep dive in that, but there's an energy source essentially be the idea that we have access to, but the oil barons, Rockefellers and whatnot, were able to nip that in the bud and everything. Is you can see that, man. Big oil. I'm not a fan of big oil. I'm a fan of big oil more than I'm a fan of big wind, but all in all, they're the same thing. Anyway, the point being the idea that history is made up of basically civilization started essentially in the Renaissance, if that makes sense. And you're like, okay, but then you have to say, wait a second, why did Christopher Columbus say there's these people? How do you have these architects, these structures and all that? How could you build these places in 2 to 3 years with just horse and buggies? And the whole thing is incredible. It's interesting as can be. And it'll just completely change your mind on everything you've been told. And then you read about guys like Hugh. I just, an side note on this. The guy, let me just read you about the guy who designed the Great Chicago Exposition. I always did a video on this, but I didn't just because I got too much other stuff to do. But let me just read you about this guy if I can find him. His name was, what the hell's his name? Hold on just a second. Because this guy is Burnham. That's it. We got Burnham. What was his first name here? So the guy who designed the Great Exposition was named Daniel Burnham. All right. So Daniel Burnham is basically, I'm going to tell you about him. He tries to get into Yale and Harvard, but is denied. And instead, he learns drafting at an architectural firm where he meets this guy named, I think is Root. I forgot Root's first name. But anyway, some guy named Root. John Root. John Root was, anyway, let's make you read it. He then tries to be a gold miner, a druggist, and a glass salesman. And he fails at them all. Then he meets Root as he went back to Chicago after he went to San Francisco and all these other places, was a failure. He meets Root. Root's the brains behind the Root Burnham architectural firm, but their Root was only 21 when Burnham met him, who was only 26. 21, 26. So they had no experience other than they're basically working as drafters in his architecture firm in Chicago. Root studied in England and New York, but he was also working as a draftsman. They had designed nothing. They had not studied architecture. But within weeks of meeting, they get a contract from the richest man in Chicago, who was head of the Union Stock Yards, named John B. Sherman, to build his mansion. And you're like, wait a second. These guys had no skill set at all. And yet the richest guy in Chicago, they had no resume, nothing, whatever they call it, and that kind of stuff, portfolio, nothing. They're 26 and 21 years old. Burnham had failed at everything he had done. So supposedly while doing the work, Burnham meets Sherman's daughter, the rich guy's daughter, and they marry. So this nobody who failed at everything he ever tried, had no experience and no money, who had moved all over the country, then came back to Chicago to be in the draftsman in an architecture firm in downtown Chicago. He partners with this guy, Root, who's 5 years younger than him. They're both in their mid to early 20s. Gets a contract to design this mansion of the richest guy in Chicago, marries that guy's daughter, and then he begins all these other contracts. He's credited with being the architect of 14.7 million square feet of buildings in New York, Chicago, Washington, Manila, Detroit. He was also the architect for the Montauk and Masonic Temple buildings in Chicago. He has a lot of Masonic architects in charge of the fair planning. Montauk was the name of the base used by the U.S. Navy in supposed time travel experiences from the Long Island in the 1970s. Burnham published a book that laid out the plan for Chicago's future. Oddly, he made a plan for Chicago, for San Francisco as well, but they were scrapped because of the earthquake. So then Root, who everyone recognized as the brains, Burnham was basically a salesman, magically just dies. Burnham says, I want to be known as the architect. And he just rushes out to remove Root's name from all his stuff. And you're just like, that's freaking crazy. All right. So anyway, then we keep going. Again, this is just the beginning. We go into the guy, Hugh Bancroft, who wrote the history of all this stuff. And you might have been familiar with him, Hugh Bancroft. He was sent to San Francisco to sell books in 1850. All right. So his brother-in-law had a bookstore in Buffalo, sent Hugh Bancroft with inventory to San Francisco in 1850 to sell high-priced books to San Francisco in 1850. Come on, man. Who the hell out there is going to have the money to, no one can read? It's just a bunch of miners and gold miners. That's it. And this guy goes out there and is so successful, he comes back and now he is basically the historian of a lot of this stuff from the the late 1800s and into 1900s. It's just so freaking funny, man. You're like, no, doesn't make any sense. No way that freaking Burnham or Hugh Bancroft just showed up on the scene one day. These guys are chosen, and I don't know who chooses them. I don't know. I just find it funny, and it's fun. It's fun to research because you're like, that doesn't make any sense. And then once you start going down there, you're like, nah, nothing makes sense. The only thing that makes sense is right here in my relationship with the big guy. Let's say a prayer. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Heavenly Father, we will never know what's happening on this world. Your realm. Just give us the patience to know that you have a grand plan for all of us. You love us all as individuals. Your only goal in life, well, my only goal in life is to have a personal relationship with you as so you told you want with us. And it's amazing that the God who created everything would want a personal relationship with me. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. I don't need to prove it because I can't, but I just know I love you. I know you love me. And I just pray for those who are seeking to know that you are forever eternal and you are love. And just to give it all up and say, I turn to God for all things. We pray in Jesus' name, amen. All right, so I just, it's fun because you're like, man, at the end of the day, God is, I don't know what he's up to. It's not really like sneaky, but God is, he's in charge in the supernatural realm. Now, he's in charge here too, if he wanted to be. My goodness, he doesn't have, I don't know what God's plan is. No one knows what God's plan is, but when you have God and you have faith, and it's faith, I can't prove God exists, but when you have the faith, you're like, it's fun, man. And people are like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Like, why would you not be? Why would you say, wait a second, that doesn't make sense? And then you start putting, and then once you see, you can't unsee. You're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I get it now. I don't get it, but you're like, nah, It's just fun. All right. So let's, which is part of the reason I do this YouTube channel, because I think a lot of people need to be awakened to the intricacies of retirement planning that they've been lied to about. All right. So a couple of things I want to just share with you real quick. I got a kick out of this. If I can find it, yes, I can. Sweet. And then we'll go into my thing on the census stuff because it's fun. All right, so we're going to go right here. So here's a real-time operating grid for the United States, U.S. This EIA. Now Biden's group of fascists run the EIA, the Energy something administration. I can't remember. Energy. What the hell is it called? The Energy. Yeah, I forgot. Something administration. Anyway, so what we're going to show you here, U.S. electricity generation. We got right now Eastern time. Doesn't give us a time here. We just refresh it just to make sure we got up to snuff on the current time. I love this stuff. Is fantastic. Some of y'all know what the EIA stands for. I'm drawing a blank what it is here. I just can't remember. Anyway, so we're going to go down here. And right here, so we got demand. All right, this is demand, but here's all we really want to know is generation. And we look right here, and you can see where is our energy, our electricity generation by energy source. Where's our electricity being generated by? Oh, natural gas. Look at that, natural gas right there. What's number two? Anyone want to take a guess? Coal, still number two. Nuclear, look how level that is. Look how level nuclear is. It's there when you need it, baby. Natural gas, it's just electricity generation, by the way. Coal, nuclear. Hydro, blue. Look at hydro. Can we make more hydro? Can't make more hydro. Other, what would other consist of? Biomass, I assume. All right, other. Then we go down here to solar, and here's basically peak solar right there, and this is by megawatt hours. So peak solar right there is 40,000 megawatt hours. 40,000. Hydro is 39,000. Wind is 15,000. So between solar, hydro, and wind, we got 95,000 megawatt hours. All right. Natural gas by itself is 268,000 megawatt hours. It's just electricity. Coal, 121,000 megawatt hours. And this is peak solar. Nuclear basically is the same as solar, wind, and hydro combined. All right, but remember, the sun doesn't shine. This is where some guy was saying solar and wind are what do you say? Wind is taking 40% of the electricity generated in Texas. I said, yeah, but it's not reliable. You can't rely on wind. You can't. I mean, it's stupid to even say this. It's just amazing how many people think this. Oh, it's reliable. No, it's not. It's just not reliable. Anyway, so here, when when the sun isn't shining, we only have 84 megawatt hours. That's it. Wind is 29,000 megawatt hours. Oh, look at natural gas. 170,000 megawatt hours. Look at nuclear. Seems to be flat. Just stays there right when we need it. Look at coal. Isn't that interesting? As you can see, so here's the wind. I think wind's in green if memory serves. Yeah, wind's in green. So peak wind, low solar. Peak solar, minimal wind. Here you can see how they kind of operate one off each other. It's just so freaking stupid, man. It's so dumb. And this is just electricity, not even total energy. So we're gonna. I literally can't believe that people are this stupid. But then I read what's going on in Europe, and I recognize the people who are stupid who follow this. The leaders aren't. I think it's design destruction. It's controlled destruction. When I don't know, I literally don't know why they want to do this to their population. I guess because they can. I don't know why. I was reading Macron today, and he was just talking about like we're just gonna have to be used to the years of abundance are over, said Macron in France. That's what he said. He goes, the years of abundance are over. I'm just like, what? Why would you? Why are they over? Because we have to fight Putin? I mean, it makes no freaking sense. Why should we? I mean, I get it. He's in France and Europe's like basket case, but U.S. isn't that far behind. Just look at California. They're going to literally. So here's the generation. Here's the demand. I mean, we're demanding here 120. Well, just go right here. Whatever. So this is 8:24 at what's that? 5 o'clock Eastern time. Our demand is over about 130,000 megawatt hours. California is a big state. California gets rid of ICEs, and all of a sudden, all these people come home and they start plugging into the grid to load their EVs. This is a freaking clusterfuck, man. Look at that. That's total load, by the way, total demand. That's not just, you can see Texas there, you can see the Northeast, you can see New England. This is insanity. And yet, generation. So now at 5 o'clock, let's just go to 5 o'clock, right? Oops, hold on a second. Right, 1700, right there. Solar is giving us 35 megawatt hours, 35,000 megawatt hours, which is down from where it was at noon, obviously, which is basically 40,000. And what happens? Solar just falls off a cliff when the demand goes through the roof. This is when the demand goes through the roof. It's crazy. Why are they doing this? I don't understand. I don't understand why they're doing this, other than it's managed decline. But why? Why would you do that to your own citizens? It's weird. Because they hate people? I don't know. Anyway, the 3 Mile Island is totally a false flag, Marty. We know that. I'm just looking at what happened with the China syndrome coincided with 3 Mile Island. I mean, literally, it's complete false flag, 100%. The China syndrome came out like 10 days later. 3 Mile Island happened. I mean, it's completely false. But what's going on in Chernobyl and Fukushima? Things are growing. There's no three-eyed, a la Simpsons fish. Things are growing fine. It's crazy. Crazy. All right. So it's look at. I know it's what I'm saying is the depopulation agenda. But the idiots are the people who think this is legit. That's what I don't get. Like the idea that, I mean, there are people out there who think wind and solar are going to run a modern society, and I just sit there and I'm in awe at that level of unicorn fart stuff. I'm like, can you actually believe that? I mean, do you? Not you, Marty, or anybody, but baby cakes, no siree. You people believe that, and they do. I'm like, how do you possibly believe that? Wind and solar are non-reliable. Oh, we just took a switch and coal-fired plants will come back on. Well, not coal, because we don't want coal. Now we'll just flick the switch and natural gas will come back. It's not how it works. You can't just flick a switch and have this big plant just say, okay, it's absurd. Never mind what they'll say is batteries. And then the minute they say batteries, I'm like, oh, okay, then wait till the technology of battery comes, and then we can do it. How about that? Instead of going wind and solar right now, why don't we wait till the technology for batteries is available? Then we can do it. Let's not put the cart before the horse. And that's why it's a managed decline by the powers that be. All right. I don't think it's just the left. Look, Marty, I think it's the right too. I was reading a couple of comments and I was griping to my wife today, because I posted something. I was, let me just show what I'm talking about. I was stunned some of the comments from people when I was saying about the student loan stuff, and people are like, well, if they're going to give a $10,000 write-off, I want a $10,000 deduction. I was like, oh, and these are like right wingers. I was like, oh, you're going to get Biden would say, okay, we'll give you a $10,000 deduction if I can give my voters a $10,000 write-off. It's the level of idiocy is insane. I want a $10,000 deduction as opposed to a $10,000. What we'd want is a refundable tax credit, people. And that's the thing. Republicans are not quite as bad, but they're pretty bad, man. Trust me. I follow a lot of, supposed right-wing blogs, and the level of absurdity in their comments is bordering that of lefties. Actually, it's sad, man. I expected more out of the Republicans, frankly, but I guess that's my own fault. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but for someone to say, well, if you're going to give those guys $10,000, I want a $10,000 deduction. I'm like, oh, crazy. All right. All right, so let's go into the census stuff because this is fantastic. I love this, and then we'll go through this, and after give me 20, 25 minutes, something like that. If people got questions, just make sure you put it all caps. Yeah, right here, like 100%. Boss Tweed. Yep, the biggest swipe at the U.S. was the movie China Syndrome. You want to hear something crazy I just learned today? Did you know that Jim Morrison's dad was a chief architect for the whole thing with Gulf of Tonkin? His dad was an admiral in the Navy. He was like the big Gulf of Tonkin guy who kind of solidified the Vietnam War. Jim Morrison from the Doors. Isn't that crazy? Did you know that Joe Walsh, Chrissy Hine from the Pretenders, I'm not sure if the whole band Pretenders, and the guys from Devo were at Kent State when that happened? Joe Walsh, the lady from the Pretenders, and the guys who were in Devo were all at Kent State when that, the four dead in Ohio. Crazy. 100%, Brian. We're supposed to lead the way, but you lead the way by challenging things. They say, "Yeah, that doesn't make sense, man. That doesn't make sense. Let's see some numbers on that." And I actually another guy on a different blog I was posting who was really upset with me on my take on pensions. Said the vast majority of Americans never had pensions, man. Never happened. And he said, "Well, it was the big companies that wanted ERISA so they could unload their unload their pensions." I said, "Well, that might be true. I don't buy that bouquet, even that were true." And then his next thing is like, "That's why we don't have a secure retirement, and most people don't have a secure retirement anymore." I said, "Show me the numbers, dude. You're making a stated factual claim. Let me see the numbers that most retirees don't have a secure retirement. Let's see what data set you have. Because if I'm missing something, I want to know if I'm not missing something." And just to be bloviating that retirement is on shaky ground because we don't have pensions anymore, it's silly. And I'm tired of silliness. After what happened the last 2.5 years, we got no room for this stuff anymore. There's no room. There's no room, man. I suffer no idiots anymore. Neither should you. We don't suffer idiots. And idiots are people who bloviate about whatever it is. I don't care. If without based on factual evidence, and I mean literally factual evidence that you can see and you can read and understand. If you have to have a freaking degree in 8,000 different things with all these stupid mathematic formulas, it's all lies, man. Because we don't know. And just because some other guy says, "Oh yeah, special relativity is proven," Einstein, you say, "Really? Is that true?" Because there are other people who say it's not. So which one? Well, Mike, it's the same thing. We don't have time for this. No time. No time. There's no time left for you on my way to better things. I found myself some wings. All right, let's go into this. This is going to be fun. And this will go right, perfect segue into the census stuff. I appreciate y'all being here. Oh, man. Now, this is a Census Bureau. This is not a Consumer Expenditure Survey. All right, this is the American Community Survey from the U.S. Census. And as the American Community Survey, the current population survey, the same thing. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. Remember. The CPS on income, I think this might be. Anyway, we're going to go into expenses. The CPS, the current population survey on income, way underestimates income. I cannot stress this enough. So when people say the average income for XYZ is such, you need to have a big thing going beep, 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 beep. Where is that coming from? If they say the current population survey via the U.S. Census Bureau, you said that has that thing been adjusted in the last couple of years? Because my understanding has not. And if it hasn't been adjusted, we know it is wrong. It underestimates income big time. We all knew this. Is that you, babe? Okay. What are you doing? Okay. My wife's getting ready to go. All right. So we know they underestimate income. So all these people say, "Oh my goodness, look, the average person's income's this and the average Social Security's that. We're all going to die." You say, okay, do they adjust the CPS, the current population survey? And then they're going to look at you like, and you're going to say, "You don't know what the hell you're talking about. I got no time for fools. We don't have time for that. We went through too much these last 2 years with Fauci, Francis Collins, Birx, all these fools. We got no time. Now's the time to be honest. And if you don't have the honesty in your heart that he says you're not really sure, then shut the hell up. I'm not you guys that are here. I'm just saying these fools are out there trying to encourage you to be nervous about things that you don't need to be nervous about. There's tons to be nervous about, but not fake stuff. All right. So anyway, we're going to go to this American Community Survey. Man, I tell you, there's so much freaking data in here. It's awesome. So the first thing we're going to do is, you see, I typed, let me just show you. Well, here, I'm just going to go into this. We're going to go to median selected monthly owner cost by mortgage and mortgage status. You don't see that? This right here is classic right here. Gary says, which uses, I don't know what he's saying before, but uses two-way chargers. So you might find up your car is dead even if it's been plugged in all night. Or you might find that your car just took fire and burned your whole house down. That's why they don't let electric vehicles park underneath big apartment complexes and whatnot, because you have tons of instances where the car is just catching battery. Spontaneous combustion, and basically not good and hard to put out too. All right. Let's keep going. All right. So anyway, I cannot stress how important this is. This in 2020, median selected monthly owner cost by mortgage status for houses. All right. Housing units with a mortgage, their median monthly cost was $1,600. Housing units without a mortgage, the median monthly cost was $500. All right. Everybody understand that? So if you have a mortgage, it's costing you $1,100 a month more than if you don't have a mortgage. $1,100 a month, we take our trusty calculator and we say $1,100 a month times 12. That means it costs you $13,000 a year more for the median house if you have a mortgage versus you don't. How much does it cost to earn $13,200? Well, you got to pay FICA, so that's 7.65%. So that's going to be another $1,000, just because if you're earning this money via earned income, it's going to cost you at least another 7.65 in FICA, and we'll just say another 10% in income taxes for the state and feds, just for simplicity. It's going to cost you another $2,500 of labor on top of income to pay that extra $13,000 a year. So it's basically going to cost you $15,000, roughly $500, to earn the money to pay the extra $13,000 a year for the mortgage. Or the other way to do it is if you go into retirement, you pull an extra X amount of dollars out each year from your portfolio than you would not have had to if you had no mortgage. I hope that makes sense. That's just, it's going to get better here too. That's just your median monthly cost, mortgage versus not a mortgage. All right, let's keep going. I got my notes here. Let's see, because I was writing this stuff down. I go to, I think it's this one. Median selected monthly. Yeah, right. Is that it? 1 sec. No time left for you. On my way to better things. Can I get this thing over here? There we go. Right here. Okay. All right. Oh, this is critical. Median selected monthly owner cost as a percentage of household income. Now, I take issue with this because we've already talked about the challenges of identifying household income to begin with, but we're underestimating income, especially for retirees in particular. Pretty much everyone's fine except for retirees because they did not count retirement distributions the way they should have. Anyway, houses without a mortgage spend about 11% of their total income as their median selected monthly owner cost, 11%. Houses with a mortgage spend about 21% of their total income as their median selected monthly owner cost as a percentage of income. All right, and that isn't that odd, because if we look at the Consumer Expenditure Survey, by the way, and we say, what is, let's see if I can't find it. Let me just hold on. Let me look it up here. So we're going to look at the consumer right here. Housing in the Consumer Expenditure Survey is between 30 and 40% of total CPI. 30 to 40% of total CPI. Inflation. Yet, if you have no mortgage, only the median 11% of your total income is going to your housing costs. Again, that means 50% have more, 50% have less. Interesting. Selected monthly owner costs. Let's look at this guy. Hope this makes sense, man. I if this I can't freaking click the damn thing. All right, here we go. Selected monthly owner costs. All right, so check this out. And right there. So we got 70, we'll say roughly 80 million homeowners. All right. Right there and there and there. So basically, we got 1,000 to 2,000 is a cost. Basically, the majority of the people who are homeowners pay between 1 and 2,000, even 2,500. All right. So what does that tell you? Well, that tells you simple is that if you have a mortgage, you're paying up here because you already said the median monthly cost for people without a mortgage is less than what we say $500 or something like that. All right. Isn't that interesting? So that is your monthly cost right there. And then you go over here, 3,500. This is gonna be the rich people. All right, let's keep going. Mortgage status and selected monthly cost. All right, so check this out. So I wrote this down. I'm not sure I'll be able to follow my own writings here. Now we'll just go. We got 80 million households, of which basically 50 million was at 50. That's about 62% have a mortgage. What you'll see here is right here. If you have a mortgage, your cost, the significant amount of people are paying between $1,000 and $3,000 if you have a mortgage, and you have still a decent number amount paying $4,000. This is everything, property taxes included, by the way. All right, so I just want to point out, and I think I have it written here: median household costs, 62%. Oh, what do I have here? I can't read my writing. All right, so what you can see right there. So that right there, 10 million of the homeowners pay between 1,500 and 2,000 a month in their mortgage, in their housing cost, without a mortgage. Less than 100. But I just let me show you something. With a mortgage, 1,000 or more is significant. Without a mortgage, 1,000 or less is significant. I mean, I get that's just the same thing on the actual median cost, but you see this? The only people without a mortgage are way over here who pay $1,500 a month or more, because that's going to be property tax, probably people who live in New Jersey and stuff. The bulk of people, the vast majority of people without a mortgage spend less than $1,000 a month on their housing cost. Let's keep going down. I think we did that. Yeah, we did that. Hold on a second. Mortgage status by mortgage status by selected monthly owner as percentage of household income. There we go. All right, so if you got a mortgage, you got between 10. Look at that. 5 million homeowners pay more than, with the people with mortgage, pay more than 50% of their income to servicing their debt. I mean, that's about 10% of all households who have a mortgage. 5 million or 10 million, 10% are paying more than 50% of their income. Ugh, that scares me. Right here, we got that's 20 roughly, 32, 35. 35 out of 48, 35 divided by 48. 73% are paying between 10 and 35% of their income in mortgage. Now, if we go down to no mortgage, 13, almost half of the people with no mortgage are paying less than 10% of their income. And then we go down here again. A significant amount of people are paying more than 50% of their income who don't have a mortgage because they're going to live in New Jersey, places where high income or high property tax. Crazy. Age. This is fun right here. This is fantastic. Age of householder by selected monthly owner cost as percentage of household income. So I want to show you guys something here. Householders 65 and older, basically 1/5 of, if you're over 65, 1/5 of you pay more than 35% of your income to servicing your household. Right? But look at that. More than half pay less than 20% if you're over 65. Hope that makes sense. So the older you get, the less a percentage of your income goes to servicing your mortgage. Going back to the consumption smoothing, why would you say I need this as my retirement replacement ratio if I have a mortgage now when I won't have one in the future? It makes no sense. I want to go down here though, because I want to show the 1 second monthly housing costs. I think I did this. Allocation selected monthly owner cost. Right here. This is what I want to do. Nope, that's not it. Mortgage status by value too. All right. 50 million households with a mortgage. The biggest value of their home is between basically $200,000 and $500,000 is the biggest value of their home with people with a mortgage. You can even say right here, I mean, a significant amount of people who have a mortgage have a house worth $200,000 to $750,000. Not mortgage though, right there, $200,000 to $500,000. So by not having a mortgage doesn't mean you're in a crappy old house, if that makes sense. This is no mortgage. 10 million people without a mortgage have a house that's worth between $200,000 and $500,000, and that'd be 30% of the population. Here, with the people with a mortgage, 21 of about 30% of the population also has a house that's worth $200,000 to $500,000. Mortgage status by median value. So if you have a mortgage, your median household is your median home value is $251,000. If you don't have a mortgage, your median home value is $187,000. That's pretty close, man. That's not, not talking about freaking single wide trailers with living with David Allen Coe, if you know what I'm saying. That doesn't mean if you have no mortgage, you're living in a trailer. It just doesn't. Nothing wrong with a trailer. I want to show you this too. I thought this was pretty interesting. Median gross rent by not that. I was right here. Median gross rent by year the person moved in. If you moved in 2019, your median rent was $1,200. If you moved in 2000 to 2009, your median gross rent was $976. Pretty significant difference there. So the point again being is, the longer you've been as a renter, the less your median gross rent was. The more you're working with your homeowner, the less they're probably jacking up the prices, the less inflation is happening. I mean, again, if we look at the consumer expenditure survey, rent is 5.4% of the entirety of the CES consumer for the BLS numbers for the CPI. Excuse me. So rent is 5.4%. Other lodging is 1.7%, and owned dwellings are 10.4%. But I mean, what? Again, I don't care if you're a renter or not. But why would I? If I'm a renter, let's just say I moved in here, I'm paying $1,000 a month. Why would I care on my inflation what your owner's equivalent rent is for CPI? It makes no sense, man. Because that's what happens to me right there. My rent is $1,064 a month. What's my inflation? What's going to be based on that? It has nothing to do with the CES, Consumer Expenditure Survey. I hope that makes sense. I just sit there and like, so we're literally Consumer Expenditure Survey, 31%. This is a couple years old, but I don't know if I have the. I'm not going to be able to find the most recent one. Let's see what year this is. No, here we go, 2020. Sweet. All right, so Consumer Expenditure Survey, housing. Nah, it doesn't give me the percentage. Either way, we know for a fact that the Consumer Expenditure Survey, when it comes to CPI, that housing is by far and away the biggest expense of that. By far and away. Nothing comes close. Transportation is second, not even close to what housing is. All right, housing consists of rents. It consists of other lodging. It consists of owner dwellings. That's going to be shelter. Right? It consists of utilities, gas, public provisions. All that makes sense. But basically, shelter is the biggest component of the housing cost, which is the biggest component of CPI. And shelter includes rental dwellings, includes owned dwelling. We're throwing out you renting your house down the street on top of my own owner's equivalent rent as part of this increase in CPI. And I'm going to do a video later on where I'm going to just destroy shadow stats because all you guys, not you guys, but some people are like, don't you know shadow stats? Like, I'm going to destroy it. And I'm not going to show you, I'm not going to use their website because I don't want to get dinged, because I did that one time with somebody else. I took them to task. It wasn't shadow stats. And they lodged a copyright infringement for using their stuff. And I said, okay, I'm not going to do that again. So I'm going to destroy these guys because it's insane. Shadow stats are saying it's like a 20% inflation. It's just freaking stupid. All right. Anyway, so the reason they're doing that is because they use the 1980 and the 1990 numbers. Let's just see their shadow stats. Let's just look again at what the again, we don't have time for this crap. I'm sorry. The world's freaking burning and these guys want to use fake numbers and it just ticks me off. Let's just see what we got here. So let's go to 1980 shadow stats, because that's what I think I did last time. 45% was their weighting in 1980. And this is where they said they changed it in 1980. So we're going to use pre-1980 or 1990. I think it's both, actually. 40% of CPI in 1980 was based on housing costs, their shadow stats, of which shelter was 31%. Of which rent was 5% of that. Home ownership was 25% of that. Why would I have to pay both? Why would I have to pay both in CPI, rent or home ownership? It's just dumb, man. It's dumb. I'm sorry, it's dumb. I don't. Well, we have to use something. Okay. So then they're going to say we should use before 1980. And then they'll say we should use, we got 1990, we got 1986 in here. And then we're going to say housing. Again, we're going to go down to housing right there. Still 42%. Okay, so they're going to say we're going to use the numbers before that. All right, let's go to 1970s. I'm fine with that. We'll go to 1977 and 1979. All right, here we go. Food and beverages are 18%. Food and beverages is about 13% now. Housing, 45%. I mean, what? Okay. Of which shelter is 31%. Okay, we'll use 1961. And I know, look, housing was only 34% then, and food was going to be higher. Let's see. Food was 23%. Okay, so food was 23, housing was 34, apparel and upkeep 9%. Why would you use that? You ever heard of textiles? Why would you use 9% as a weighting for apparel? The textile thing, the reason there's no more textiles in cotton countries because it all got shipped overseas. It's cheaper now. It may be wrong or it doesn't matter. It is what it is. It's a hell of a lot cheaper to buy apparel than it was 45, 50 years ago. Rightly or wrongly. So why would you use 9% as part of your consumer weighting? It makes no sense. Housing 34%. Why would you do that? Food, all right, I get no problem with that. Health and recreation, medical care 6%, personal care, so basically 10% for medical care. That's fine. Reading, recreation, other goods and services. So they're saying we're going to use the numbers pre-1980 because that's when it got manipulated to underscore the CPI and to make it so that we could show that we weren't running the deficits that we were showing. It's just silly on its face. And then we can go 1952 if we want. Food was 28%. Housing still is 32%. Apparel still 8%. Anyway, the point being is it's embarrassing because I'm sitting there thinking, and people fall for this stuff. Shadow stat says inflation is 20%. Based on what exactly? Based on their non-government trusting numbers. Okay. The first thing I say, so I don't want to say it because people get mad. So you don't trust the government. You don't trust the government, but we trust the government on things that we go to the moon. Okay, that makes sense. All right, so I don't trust the government on anything, but I trust what they said about various jabs and various things where we're going to space. Gotcha. All right, let's keep going because this is fun. Let's go. Now, you could argue, well, Josh, why do you trust CPI? I don't trust it. That's the whole point. I'm trying to destroy this whole thing of you saying I can't retire because CPI, my inflation, I use a 3% base inflation. Why? What's that based on? I don't know. Exactly. All right, so let's keep going down here. Right here, mortgage status. Oh, this is so critical. So critical. This right here, my friends. Let me just pause for a second. I think we've been able to show you that without pretty easily, frankly, without a mortgage, your income needs are way lower than what you've been told by far. All right. So if you have no mortgage, you're going to have less income you need to live on because a mortgage is one of your top costs. I think we can all agree that. So I'm just going to assume that you agree with that. Now, that doesn't mean healthcare. It doesn't mean there's no other cost of food. But if mortgage expenses are one of the biggest, actually, they're the biggest expense for the vast majority of people. Once we get out from under that, that means we have freed up a lot of cash flow that we have to use for other things or that we don't need. And if we don't need the cash flow, that means we don't need to earn it, which means we don't need to pay tax on it, which means we don't need to slave away at a crappy old job in which to get it. All right, I think we can all agree that. So now we're going to go into this. I'm going to show you how important it is, especially for if you're thinking about retiring. Check this out. Because it just makes sense. The older you get, the less likelihood you have a mortgage. All right, so we got housings. This is our household, the people who own the home. All right, we got 50 million households with a mortgage. All right, we can see if you're 65 and older, that's about 9 million have a mortgage still. 9 million divided by 50. So about 18% of household owners have a mortgage are over 65 years old. That makes sense? So if you have a mortgage, you can see right there, of the people who have a mortgage, only 18% are over the age of 65. Now, in of itself, that doesn't tell you anything until we see the next number. But you can see, this is me, your old buddy Josh. My age is the biggest mortgagee there is, 45 to 54. By far. Well, not actually by far, right there. Huh, it's weird though. 45 to 54. Oh, wait a second. From 55 to 59, it goes down by half? But I'm supposed to say I need 80% of my replacement income, even though in basically from 54 to 55, the number of people the mortgage drops in half. Interesting. From 55 to 59 to 60, 65, another 10% of those people fall off. So by the time you hit 60, from 45 to 50, basically we got 7 million people are no longer mortgagees. They no longer have a deed of trust. They own it outright. Now we're going to that without a mortgage. Oh. 3.69 people did not have a mortgage who were 45 to 54. 3.89 people did not have a mortgage who were 60 to 64. 8 million householders did not have a mortgage who were 65 to 74. 8 million householders did not have a mortgage who were 75 and older. So we have 30 million householders, all right? 30 flipping million householders. What's that? 16 million of those, more than 50%, 30 million householders without a mortgage. Over 50% of non-mortgagees are over the age of 65. Yeah. If we go to the age of 64, 60 to basically 60 and older, we got, we'll say 4, 8, and 8. What's 4, 8, and 8? There's about roughly 20. So roughly 20 out of 30. 66% of homeowners who are over the age of 60 have no mortgage. The older you get, the less likely you're going to have a mortgage. That's just a fact, man. The older you get, the less likely you have a mortgage. The basic people who have a mortgage are 35 to 55. As you age, you just start paying that sucker off. You start moving out, downsizing the whole thing. And because of that, the basics for retirement planning, if it's based on any income need or any income that we're receiving today, if we are in any of these age groups, even this age group, look at that. 5.9, we'll say 6 million people between 55 and 59 had a mortgage. 60 to 64 dropped by 1 million households. We go over here. 3 million people had no mortgage between 55 and 60. 4 million people had no mortgage 60 to 65. I mean, what more do you need, man? So I think that's pretty cool. Let's see if I got anything else I want to share with you on this. Aggregate. Percent. Right here. Mortgage status by, right here. Mortgage status by monthly housing costs as a percentage of income in the last 12 months. If you have a mortgage, let's see, 30, let's see. Oh, that's your income. I can't tell this percentage income. Right here. If you're making 50,000 to 75,000, what's that right there? Oh, okay. Right here. All right. So if you make 50, all right. So here we go. There's 50 million households with a mortgage. If you're making between 50 and 75,000, 8 million households have a mortgage. Of those 8 million households, what's that? 40% are spending more than 30% or more of their income on their mortgage debt. Oof, that's not good. That's not good. We don't want that. We want to get rid of that. And if you have less than 35, if you have 35 to 55,000, more than half of you guys are spending more than 30% on your household debt. But no, it's just the same. I'm getting bored of doing this because it's the same thing. Anyway, so let me stop sharing there. How awesome is that? How awesome is that? You know, I wrote about this in the book I got here someplace. You can retire on Social Security. I wrote about it because I said, look, just pay off your mortgage. It's the best thing you can do. If you pay off the doggone mortgage, you don't have to worry about CPI. Now, do you have to worry about inflation? Sure. In fact, I looked at my escrow. Ironically enough, my property tax, because some guy was saying his property tax are up 50% over the last 6 years or something like that. And I said, okay. So how much are your expenditures? And I don't know if he responded back because I don't check. I mean, comments come through, so it's hard to keep up with them. But anyway, let's just say you're, so I want to point, let me do this. Let me draw this out. I got to get organized, man. All right. So let's just say your expenditures, I'm just for simplistic and say $100,000. All right. We got $100,000 expenditure, and we hear CPI is at 8.5%. All right. So what most people say is, "Oh my goodness, that means I need an extra $8,500 in which to live on." All right. So people are going to say, CPI is up 8.5%. My expenditures are $100,000. I need an extra $8,500 in which to live on. Because this is all that matters, and this is basically the bulk of my book I'm writing right here. I'm just saying, look. Stop it, because this is silly. No, you don't. You say, why? I'll say, well, let's just say your mortgage is paid off. Oh my goodness, but my property tax are up 50%. All right, how much are your property tax relative to that $100,000? How much are your property tax? I don't know, I pay $400 a month. So I'm paying $4,800 a year in property tax. All right. $4,800 a year in property tax. All right, and we'll just say my property tax went up 50%. 50%. That'd be $4,800, $2,400, would be $7,200. All right. So now I'm paying $7,200 a year in property tax instead of $4,800 a year in property tax. Just as an FYI. Was that an 8.5% CPI increase? No. My cost of living went from 4.8 to 7.2. That's it, man. In terms of how much it cost. It went from 4.8% of my income at $100,000 to $7,200 of my income. That's not anywhere near an $8,500 increase in freaking expenditures. It's just not. And if you have no mortgage, you're like, all right, well, my food went up a little bit. Okay. And actually, the funny thing is my property taxes, frankly, haven't gone up anywhere near with that. And I'm in Fulton County, for heaven's sake. But I looked at my escrow. The only thing different is that my homeowners in cost. Why? Because the cost of lumber. We got some additions and stuff. So the homeowners cost, the one that we took on just because I knew we wanted to upgrade the house some. But certainly on anywhere near 50%, I challenge that guy. I mean, whatever. Who am I to say? But the idea that my expenditures went up $8,500 on $100,000 because of CPI, especially if your mortgage is paid off, it's just not. It's a non-starter. It's just not. But don't you know transportation? Where's the other one? Transportation. Oh yeah, we can. Oops. Let's just look at it. Transportation. There we go. But Josh, transportation. Let's go to right there. Transportation, man. Don't you know what transportation's done? Because transportation is the second biggest part of CPI. And we're going to go to transportation. 17% of CPI is based on transportation. This is 1986. It's not quite the same now, but I think it's 14%. Has your auto insurance gone up? I mean, what is your auto insurance? From a dollar perspective, you got to look at it from the dollar bills it cost. How much did it actually cost in dollar bills? That's what matters, and not what the stupid fractions that the CPI, the BLS says. How much did it go up in dollars? So I look at my escrow from 2013 today. It's gone up a little bit. I think it was like 650, and now it's 900. So my escrow, that's probably more than 650. We'll say my escrow from 2013 when we bought this house was 650. Now it's 900. All right, so that's 250. So I'm gonna go $600, 650 plus minus. I've been here. This is our 10th year here, 10 years. Now it's 900. It's gone up 3.3% over the last 10 years. Each year, 3.3%. That's my escrow, and I'm in Fulton County, not a cheap county. All right. That seems kind of reasonable to me. And the biggest reason isn't the property tax, is because we've done so much to this house. We've increased the homeowner's insurance for replacement costs in case it burns down. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so my escrow has gone up 3.3. My mortgage hasn't gone up a dime because I'm on a fixed rate. And housing is 42% of this. And I look at my utilities. I've done videos on this. They've gone up a little bit. But where are we getting is costing me an extra $8,500 a year to live on just to break even from where it was last year. No, you're not. You're not, man. Because again, the CPI is based on rents that I don't pay. It's based on owner equivalent rents, which doesn't make any sense at all. It's crazy. And then it's based on transportation. I mean, it's based on the purchase of a newer used vehicle. I'm not buying a newer used vehicle. My cars are paid off. At some point, I might. In fact, if we go to another thing that ticked me off about, let me find this. Oops. The shadow stats thing. All right, yeah, we'll go over here. This is the first 100 years of CPI. We're going to type in Stigler. All right, so the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBR, headed by University of Chicago, George Stigler, would bring about a paradigmatic shift in theoretical framework within the BLS. This is what the shadow stats people are really upset about. Implicit in this switch was the acknowledgement that, contrary to union arguments, the CPI overstated changes in the true cost of living. Now, how are they getting that? All right, so how are they getting that? So I want to show you, if we can go down here. I can't think y'all can see this yet. Hold on a second. All right, wait. I want to show. There's something I was reading in here. Okay, let me go ahead. Previous was not to go to CPAP for research to lose rather CPAP is primary opportunity. Right. Okay. As previous sections explained, the goal of the CPI was, from its inception, was not to measure general consumer inflation continuously. is primarily a statistic used to guide arbitration in industrial relations between unions and major industrial sections of a wartime economy. Given the context of measuring inflation over a relatively short period of time, during a war, for instance, or a defined purpose, arbitration, and under rather challenging conditions, the constant goods framework for a relatively narrow defined population is not as ill-conceived as first might be thought. The competing uses for the CPI as a tool in industrial relations arbitration as an indicator of the effectiveness of government price controls. So we can see that the CPI is like, okay. All right. So let's keep going down here. The Stigler Committee, in a constant utility conception of the CPI, as Thomas Stapleford explained, the new tools and Keynesian ideas that grew out of the World War II experience exposed policymakers to potential for the national economic planning in the search for steady economic growth. Yay, Keynes, economic planning. Planners in the early 1950s saw growth as a means to achieve many ends, most crucially as a way to overcome the commies. Amid a slowdown in aggregate growth and accelerating rate of increase in the CPI in the 1950s, the Congressional Joint Economic Committee held hearings on growth and inflation. All right, let's keep going down here. The Bureau had spent much of the 40s and 50s addressing claims that it underestimated the true cost of living. But with Ruggles and Rees highlighting, these are two professors, methodological deficiency that likely to serve to overestimate inflation, and with a detrimental effect that the bias could have on other economic statistics, policymakers quickly shifted the direction of addressing the potential overestimation measurement problem. All right, so check this out. The committee presented its report in 1961. The authors wasted no time in addressing the weakness of the guiding conceptual framework on the then existing CPI. Check this out. It is often stated that the CPI measures the price of changes of a fixed standard of living based on a fixed market of goods and services. In a society where there are no new products, no changes in the quality of existing products, no changes in consumer taste, and no changes in relative prices of goods and services, it is indeed true that the price of a fixed market basket of goods and services will reflect the cost of maintaining a constant level of utility. But in the presence of the introduction of new products and changes in product quality, consumer taste, and relative prices, it is no longer true that the rigidly fixed market basket approach yields a realistic measure of how consumers are affected by prices. If consumers rearrange their budgets to avoid the purchase of those products whose prices have risen and simultaneously obtain access to equally desirable new, lower-priced products, it is quite possible that the cost of maintaining a fixed standard of living has fallen, despite the fact that the price of a fixed market basket has risen. Oh, just like I said yesterday, the true cost of electricity. You can say the true cost of a kilowatt hour. That's fine. You can say, what can I get for that kilowatt hour now, what I could not get in the 1920s? You see what I'm saying? If consumers right here, I cannot stress this enough. In a society where there are no new products, no changes in the quality of existing products, and no changes in consumers' taste. Oh, my goodness. In other words, the Stigler Committee argued that in estimating the change of the cost of living, the CPI methodology held consumer preferences and behaviors constant through time, and that approach did not reflect reality well, i.e. what Shadow Stats is griping about. Rather, consumer taste and behavior responds dynamically to changes in relative prices and to the introduction of new goods and services. iPhones. No one had an iPhone when I was growing up, and now we do. Amazing. Therefore, the report asserted the CPI needed to adopt new methods and definitions that better modeled the actual dynamics of consumer inflation, consumer behavior. Now, they did not actually this did not take off, though. This did not actually come into being until later on, like in the 90s, actually, if even that. I want to show you something else about housing, too, because this is pretty interesting. If I can find it. The Bureau did not respond enthusiastically to the Stigler Committee's conclusion. Remarking defiantly in a 1964 review, it said the basic concepts of the CPI, now its 51st year, have not changed. The national index still measures average changes over time in price of goods and services bought by wage earners and clerical workers. And look, I got no qualm with that. Either of these, I got no qualm. It's irrelevant to me and to you. What's relevant to you is what you spend your money on. All right, let's keep going. The Bureau initially rebuffed the Stigler Committee. The Stigler report renewed a debate that the Bureau thought it had settled in the early 1920s. During that time, Irving Fisher, here he comes again. This guy was put into place by powers that be. He was the leading price theorist of the day. He lobbied the Bureau to adopt his ideal index formula in calculating the CPI. All right, his formula is the very same one the Stigler Committee would later suggest using to estimate the bias in the CPI in relation to the true utility index. All right, I want to, but I got to tell you, man, I got to find where they talk about housing here because it's hold a second, a welfare index, a government indexation. Hold on, we're going to find this. The New Deal senior staff, although these by the largest result statutory action. Oversaw the coordinates of national statistics and chief economist of the White House. With his experience under his belt, he recognized the problems of CPI. Yep. For the ever expanding role of CPI, the BLS initially intended to replace the CPIW with a CPIU, which is what we use now. CPI, and this is what I think the guys at Shadow Stats don't like, the introduction of the new CPIU. We got in the new CPIU in 1978. All right, but keep going because there's something critically important on housing in here that you gotta, if I can find it. Rent. Oh, right here. All right, this is fantastic. BLS also redesigned the rent survey in its entirety. Previously, CPI field staff collected rent data semi-annually from 2, for most cities, or 3 subsamples of 500 units each. Beginning in 1974, they incorporated smaller rent samples within each city, but divided each city into 6. All right, that's not quite what I was looking for right here. They developed 250 new general items. Before, it'd be one category, which is formerly piano lessons, organs, would now be fees for lessons, golf, swimming, tennis. I mean, all these changes. The market basket was previously vitamin D grade A milk. Now it's whole fresh milk. I mean, again, changes. Hold on a second. It's coming. Hang in there, man. You guys got to be patient with me. Hold on. We're going to show you where it's at because it's incredibly important. Right here. Fine. Remember, this is 1978. Lastly, the Bureau left unresolved the issue of measuring changes in the cost of home ownership. Historically, the Bureau viewed the treatment of owner-occupied housing as a two-tiered problem. The concept under which housing is to be priced. And remember, housing is the biggest factor by far of CPI. Nothing comes close. Let's see. The concept under which housing is to be priced and the most accurate and efficient way to measure prices and price change under the concept. In 1964, the Bureau rejected the Stigler Committee's recommendation of adopting a flow of services approach in pricing the cost of services consumed by the owner of a house. Later, the commissioner attempted to be more accommodating by proposing an alternative to both the contemporaneous, I can't even pronounce that, the current method, and the Stigler recommendation. Under the proposed alternative, home purchase would no longer carry an explicit and separate weight in the CPI. The new approach would reflect equity costs and appreciation by adjusting house prices by these two elements in the base year and for allowing future variations in them. Blech. However, because of the dearth of empirical support observable for the proposed alternative approach and the diversity of views concerning the topic, the commissioner directed the CPI staff to continue to maintain the existing BLS method of price homeownership. All right. Okay, get it. But right, but we're going to keep going down here. That wasn't it, man. All right, here. Changing the treatment of, okay. There it finally go. Right here. By early 1980s, numerous government agencies By early 1980s, numerous government agencies had examined and critiqued CPI methods. Among those agencies were the CBO, the GAO, blah, blah, blah. Much of the attention was directed at the Bureau's treatment of home ownership cost. The CBO Congressional Budget Office critique is representative. Because the CPI does not distinguish between a home as an investment and as a source of shelter services, the rapid rise in the asset value of home ownership has been treated as an increase in the cost of living rather than as an increase in the wealth that has been for anyone who already owned a home. The rapid rise in the asset value of the home has been treated as an increase in the cost of living, not as an increase in the wealth. In addition, home ownership is given an unrealistically large weight in the index because mortgage costs are counted along with a full purchase price. This makes the CPI very sensitive to swings in the mortgage rate of interest. Well aware of the problems associated with this treatment of home ownership, the Bureau tried to implement an alternative in 1978, but could not get its various advisory groups to reach a consensus. Once again, the Bureau found itself defending its methods amid controversy that really necessitated a political solution. It is for Congress to determine what the purpose of indexation should be. Right? With the various government reports, the coalescing around adopting a flow of service approach and measuring home ownership costs, the commissioner announced the Bureau will replace this existing treatment of home ownership costs and CPI with a rental equivalent alternative. The Bureau explained the rental equivalence approach as incorporated into CPI attempts to answer the following question. Who's still here? I hope there's somebody still here because this is what it all comes down to, man. Yeah, I figured. I still got set. Okay. How much rental income do owners of housing units forego when they choose to occupy the units themselves instead of renting them out? And what follows, this is called implicit rent. We've talked about it a million times. It is useful to stress that although the homeowner's rent is implicit, it is not hypothetical. Yeah, it is. It's a cost all homeowners actually occur. The CPI is how much rental income do the homeowners actually forego when they live in their home as opposed to renting it out. That is a significant part of the CPI. This is called implicit rent. You don't actually get the money. It's useless to stress that although homeowner's rent is implicit, it is not hypothetical. It's 100% hypothetical. I don't get it. Whereas the rapid rise in the value of your home has been treated as a cost of living rather than as an increase in the wealth that has been generated. And this is what I'm talking about. This is what I've been saying. What? My foregone rent is part of my cost of living index, and that's not hypothetical, says the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's inherently hypothetical. If I don't receive it in my bank account, it's inherently hypothetical. It's implicit and hypothetical both at the same time. These things are not mutually exclusive. And I tell you, man, it's a weird. Look, how else would you do it, Josh? I don't know. Because what would happen there is you say, all right, I mean, I have an idea. You would say one of the ways you would say, well, why don't you just do the true cost of housing, i.e. how much you spend on your mortgage. And remember, they don't even look at the amount that you're paying against your principal as part of your consumer expenditures. All right, that's part, they call that an investment, not as part of CPI or your expenditures in the consumer expenditure survey. Weird. I pay $1,000 a month in interest, $1,000 a month in principal. 1,000 of that in principal is considered an investment. It's not considered an expense. Makes no sense, but there you go. On top of that, how much my CPI goes up for the economy is based on the implicit rent that you and I get when we own our home and don't rent it out. On top of the actual rent that other people pay. It makes no sense. It's government sausage making at its finest, 100%, man. 100%. Anyway, if you cannot trust I completely agree. The point is, What the hell is that? Now, what they'll say is, well, you should do the true cost of living, the true cost of your mortgage. All right, but then when the interest rates go down, do we have deflation then? You see what I'm saying? Because that was an issue that was in that report I just read to you. It's a long, long report. It's fantastic. But when the issue is, what do you do when the interest rates go down? I mean, especially when the cost of housing is such a big component of CPI, are we then showing that we're in deflation? I mean, because it was 6%, now it's 3. I don't know. What I would frankly do is I would take the CES Consumer Expenditure Survey, which I got to organize here, but I say, how much do you pay for your housing? How much did you? And I'd do over 3 to 5. I'd probably 3 years. How much did you pay in your house? And this is what we got to get rid of, and we'll never will. But like one of the things I did like about Trump, trying to get rid of the quarterly earnings for the SEC or the companies that are listed on the stock exchange. It's just stupid. So inflation should be on how much did you pay in your mortgage for everything? How much are you paying now? All right. And if you had no mortgage, and this is a challenge. If you had no mortgage in 2017 and now you have a mortgage, has your CPI gone up by 100%? You'd have to figure that out. I don't know. But I just think as it comes to consumer expenditures, to say I was paying $3,000 a month for my mortgage, now I'm paying $2,700 a month because I refi. That is a decline in consumer expenditures. There's no two ways around that. Thus, how do you put that in a CPI? Well, certainly shouldn't be owner's equivalent rent. That debate literally makes no sense. And that's what they do. I don't know if I'm making sense to you guys. So I'm just sitting there thinking, there's no true way to account this. The one true way to account it, and you can't even do it with phones and stuff, is you look at it. I mean, the only way to do it is through foods. There's no other way around that, man. Foods. Because a freaking bushel of apples was X in 1926. A bushel of apples is Y today. You could say a price of a car, but a price is a capital good. How do you? I mean, again, if we're going to go this route, you could say the fridge, that my TV. We'd have to say these are deflationary things because of technology. I mean, this right here would have replaced if we just. You see what I'm saying? This is why the CPI is so jacked. And I don't hate these guys. I love it. I think it's incredibly interesting. I know they're trying their best. What I'm saying is, if you look at the cost of a TV, the cost of a car, the cost of a fridge, the cost of a washing machine, all this stuff, these things haven't exploded in price relative to where we were as a society in 1970. I'm just sorry they didn't. Maybe it's because I grew up poor. I don't know. And maybe some of you guys didn't. That's why you're like, oh my God. It's completely different. And it should not be viewed in the same light. I did not have a TV. We had that party with the only phone I can remember was I don't even know if we had a phone my first 5 years, but when we moved to our better house, we lived in a summer house on. If you read my book, I kind of go a little bit into the house we initially lived in. It was a summer home, not very well insulated and all that. A poor man. I mean, no one should live there in the wintertime in Maine, but we did. But when we moved to our year-round house, we did have a TV. It was one of those, you had it on the wall in the kitchen, and you had you couldn't, you had to stretch the thing, so if you wanted to talk to your girlfriend, you had the stretchy cord, you know what I'm saying? Even those cords cost a boatload of money back then. So you stretch in the other room, and then you'd just be sitting there, and you'd be talking to your girlfriend. When I say talking, you literally would not talk. You'd say, did you say something? You're like, this isn't very fun. Anyway, but then we also had a party line, you know what I'm saying? So Grandma Jones from across the street would say, I need to use the phone and call Thelma. You're like, Grandma Jones, you're always on the phone. I know, but I need to use it. I got to go potty. You're like, oh. So you hang up. 10 minutes later, Grandma Jones said she'd be in this. Grandma Jones is not my grandma. This is what a party line was, where you all use it. I don't even know how it works. But anyway, you'd all use the same line, I guess. And you basically had one. It's like the phone connection was all these different phones connected through one line, and people would pick it up. Like, Grandma Jones, you said you'd be off in 10 minutes. I know, Sonny, but now I need someone to come over and give me some molasses. Like, oh. Grandma Jones, she's not getting off the phone fast. She's an old lady. She's got nothing else to do. You know what I'm saying? So she's yapping and yapping and yapping. And you're like, and they're like, all right, forget it, Grandma Jones. Now I just got this right here. So how do you measure that in CPI? You can't, man. Now you can measure food. Food is the one thing you can measure in CPI because food, we know a bushel, we know a pound of ground chuck. We know what that is. I'm trying to think of the other things you can measure. Even electricity, I would, like I did yesterday in that video, I challenge that to some regard because how do you measure electricity with how much we actually consume now versus the past? maybe heating oil or something like that. But basically, what you need to live is shelter. Shelter should be its own. And that's why they say the volatile food and energy, we only look at the core CPI. Well, because they get rid of food and energy. And I get that. But food is the one thing that you should be looking at because it's a true way you can, it's like a baseball, baseball statistics. Babe Ruth hit more home runs in 1927 than like 80% of the Major League Baseball teams Babe Ruth did. Maybe it was 1917. I can't remember. The dead ball era, Babe Ruth hit more home runs himself than like the vast majority of the actual teams out there, the dead ball era. You can measure that relative to what's happening today in baseball. You see what I'm saying? You can't measure these other things, though. I don't know if that makes sense. It's just, it does frustrate me. And then I hear about shadow stats and all these people like it's crazy to me, man. And again, maybe it's because I grew up poor. Maybe if you didn't grow up poor, like, my God. Look, and I've been thinking actually, what if, I just came to my mind as I was just walking the dog, say, what if instead of going to heaven, you go back to who you were when you're a baby, you go through your life again? What if that's our permanent, look, I'm not being blasphemous. I just am thinking out loud. I said, man, I would hate to have to live back through my past. I'd hate it. So what if you die, there's no real, it's just a cycle. You know what I'm saying? We're all just cycled in, on this constant thing. But I would not change my past for anything in the world, but I would not want to live back to that, if that makes sense. So as much as I would despise having to go back and live through all that crap, I'm glad I had to do that to be where I am today. And I just, it's kind of, it's a paradox, is it not? And I don't think that's what happens. I don't know, but just that's something I thought about. So, ooh, that would suck. Anyway, the point being is, maybe other people grew up differently, and I don't know. But I just remember, like, we talked about this, a couple live streams ago, eating liver. I didn't even know what liver was. I literally thought liver. I didn't know liver was literally the liver in chicken and beef or whatever, or pork or whatever. But we didn't have hamburgers. We didn't have cooked hamburgers last night. My kids were whining. I was like, what? Freaking, these are Schweig's hamburgers, the best burgers you'll ever have. They're like, burgers are boring. I was like, what? Crazy. People are nuts, man. We have a TV. The first TV we had was this little tiny Quasar, probably an 8-inch or something like that, black and white. I didn't even know the Hulk was green, other than seeing the green, Hulk things you could get. You know what I'm saying? It didn't have volume. The volume didn't work. You have to get up and, I get it. You're just an old man. I get it. But how do you sit there and say, compare that to today and say these things are somewhat comparable? They're not even close. But what's comparable is how much it costs for a pound of ground chuck and all that. Anyway. Hey, Kirk. What are you doing, man? What's your business, Kirk? It's fantastic. How do you know you would hate it if you can't remember what happened before? No, I'm just saying if I went back as a baby, Brian, like, baby Josh, you know what I'm saying? I had to go through all that stuff again that I had to go through. I would not want to do that. I'm not saying, that's what I'm saying. It'd be the same life. You just recycle your same life. So you know how they say, I don't know what the Hindus do, whatever it is, you're recycled the base of the person you were before. If you're a good guy, you get a better life. You're back. I don't know how that works. But what if you said, okay, you're dead now. You're right back to where you were as a baby, baby Josh. That would suck donkey balls. In the end, doesn't matter. Yeah, opening adult. Wow, Kirk. God bless you, brother, man. The price index concept has completely changed the thinking of the velocity of money and the one-for-one relationship between the money supply and the price level. Was there ever a one-for-one relationship between the money supply and the price level? I don't think so. The paradox of Schrumpter, creative destruction. I'm actually mulling it differently, though. I'm mulling it to say, when it comes to retirement plan raise, like all these people are like, I can't retire because I hear all the time, what about inflation? And I'm like, everyone seems that is their issue. What about inflation? I'm like, what about it? Well, how can I retire with inflation? I said, well, what do you use for inflation? 3%? Why? Ooh. Uh-oh. here, Pablo. Everyone wants to see Stone Pablo. Oh, hold on a sec. Come here, baby Gates. Oh, here comes Stony McGee. Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%, Kurt. But no, so yes, but don't forget, you're also doing God's work, man. I mean, someone's got to help these people. You know what I'm saying? I was talking to this lady who works for Goodwill, and she goes these places, and she's not supposed to change their diapers and stuff. These are adults, special needs, if that makes sense. But she does. You know what I'm saying? And she doesn't get paid squat for it. 35 to 40,000 a year, and there is, and it's just like, is she joining the government? No, but I don't know. I'm not, in this case, I'm not anti-government at all. I actually, this is, how can I say this? This is what makes me so mad about the election stuff, is that people have a right to choose how to be governed, if that makes sense. And we've all allowed ourselves to be governed by the democracy. And it's not the 50+1 and then we can kill you. No, I don't mean like that, like the Austrians say. It's more of saying, look, the majority wants to have high taxes and high regulation. Well, I don't like that, but I mean, that's the nature of the beast. If that's what the majority want. The majority wants to have mask mandates or whatever the hell they want. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? If that's what the majority wants, well, that's what the majority gets, man. And politicians aren't stupid. They know they just go with the majority. But we are part of the government too. And as such, there is a space for the government to serve. You're not a true libertarian or an anarchist, because the anarchist is stupid. Man. I mean, it's just dumb. The idea there's not going to be a government, it's so friggin' dumb. I mean, and this is, I'm not talking about Antifa anarchists. There's many right wingers and anarcho capitalists. That's so silly. So the issues that we have is we have a right to be governed according to our choices. And if our choices are something you don't like and you live in America, you have a right to be governed someplace else, which is awesome. But ultimately, the government is just basically us saying this is how we want it, as long as it's done correctly without shenanigans. And this is what's so damn frustrating, is once the shenanigans come, we're not being governed by choice, or being governed by dictate. And that's a recipe for disaster. But it's been happening throughout the history of mankind. I mean, let's not pretend we're unique in terms of we never mind Hugo Chavez in 1999, but even Putin, you know what I'm saying? I think Putin came in 1999 too, if memory serves. There was a lot of shenanigans that came along that as well. The point being is that if the government is doing something and you find it valuable to engage in it, in which to help mankind, you're not, I don't think Kirk is saying this, you're not a traitor. I remember I had that one time, some guy said, as a libertarian, I said, how can I use a GI? I remember this, 1992. I don't even think I was in college yet, but I was on some chat board or something like that. And I said, for Reason Magazine, I think, or maybe it was 1994. Maybe I was in college. And I said, I'm a libertarian. Is it dishonorable for me to use my GI Bill? And I'll never forget someone saying, I'll never forget this. There's a guy in Reason Magazine said, no, man, that's, you deserve, that's yours. That's yours. The government is ours. You see what I'm saying? He goes, you don't have it. Why would you, just because you're using the government money, that was your money that you gave, that you did. It's not like you just woke up one day and said, give me my GI Bill. All right. Yeah, that's 100%, Ray. They thought Social Security would be sufficient to maintaining pre-retirement standard of living. Exactly. Pre-retirement standing of living. And it might well be pre-retirement. Not for me. My pre-retirement standard of living, Social Security won't touch that with a 10-foot pole. My retirement standard of living, yes. All right, I think Pablo's trying to go poopy. Anything else going on? Anyway, Scott Burns wrote somewhere that the Fed is considering taxing. I had a guy email it today, a nice guy, and he said, "What do you think about this thing in the Senate?" And I said, until it's in the committee from both the House and the Senate, and prepping to go to Sniffy Joe's desk, I could care less. I mean, there's a million different things that get presented in the the halls of Congress that have no chance of passing. Anyway, so all this stuff. I just kind of like what's his name, Rick Edelman. They're going to take away your Roth. Okay, maybe, but yeah, all these things make sense. I've never paid that much, I've never paid that much attention to them. Adjust my budget according. Absolutely. I think you should calculate it for yourself. That's the issue. You got to just go look and say, what do I spend my money on? I'm not going to do that here. I mean, I got to organize. But I have the thing in here about CPI, about what the true CPI would be, given what you would be looking at in retirement, for instance, relative to housing and transportation. And right out the gate, it's only 54% of what their CPI is. But even that leaves a lot to be desired, because that uses, as I talked about yesterday, electricity prices based on kilowatt hour. The whole thing is different. So anyway, more to that, Jeremy. So you got to read my book. All right, I'm going to get out of here, man, because someone is sitting here saying, oh, but look at this other baby cake. Hi, the baby. Hi, the baby cakes. Finny Bear. Finn. You want night-nights? You want night-nights? All right, I can get out of here, man. Yeah, all that stuff's available just on the census stuff. It's fun. It's fun to look at it. It's time consuming. It's a rabbit trail, but man, it is rewarding, especially when you see all the freaking idiots out there that lie to you all the time. All right, my friends, God bless. We'll see you guys